What's up, guys? Emily here with another M. It's the M&M show today. We are talking about everything mega dating. I am so excited to have you on, Em, because you did your own mega dating experiment. I myself went on a 100-date experiment 10 years ago, and now I teach men how to date better based on what I learned from that experiment. And you did something very similar, but it was after divorce, which I think is fascinating. And we were really focused on the physical intimacy side of that. And I would love to learn so much more about that. But to give you, the proper credit, this is Witt. She is a writer, journalist, and author of the book Sex Starved. And we will be linking below so you can access more of her. You can contact her, you can read her book and all of that. But so great to chat with you, Em. I would love to learn a little bit more about your experiment to start with.
Yes. Well, what would you like to know? Basically, I went on a mega dating experience after my divorce, which is a trying time in everybody's life. And so a lot of people might think that I ended up bitter. I didn't want anything to do with men after the end of my marriage, but it was totally the opposite. I really was very excited to get back out there, and I got back out there with a vengeance.
Yes, I love it. So when you started dating after your divorce, did you go with the intention of I'm going to do X number of dates in this time frame, or how did that look for you?
I mean, I started my dating process really, in the book, I talk about how in my book, which you can read on my Substack, I talk about how I was a little bit afraid of intimacy in the beginning. But honestly, when I look back, I think I always wanted a serious relationship. And yet, it was very difficult to find a serious relationship. So I was like, while I'm here, I might as well enjoy myself, because I
Yeah.
just had no idea when that serious relationship was going to happen. If it had it happened with the first guy I met, I probably would have been happy about it. But I was also like, you know, the end of my marriage was, we basically had a sexless marriage, and I'm like, I'm ready to get back in the pool, and I'm ready to get you know, my feet wet and everything else wet. And that was the perspective that I went into with.
I love it. I love it. So tell me a little bit about how having physical intimacy throughout the mega dating process really helped you to heal after divorce.
Well, I call my book Sex Starved, and there really was a kind of starvation that was going on. I recently wrote an article which is from my book, about skin hunger and about being touch starved. It wasn't just I was lacking affection from my now ex-husband. I was literally, felt skin hunger. And so, I really wanted physical intimacy, me. I really wanted physical intimacy. And so it caused me to go about my dating in kind of, I'll come out and say it, an aggressive way that maybe was people seem to think of more like a male oriented way of seeking out physical intimacy. But for me, it was what I needed to start to feel whole again, to kind of like get into contact with my body, my emotions, and my soul ultimately.
Ooh, can you tell me more about that? I'm just curious for people who maybe haven't had as many experiences. Like, why is that? How does that help you get in touch with those things?
Well, let me think about it. I mean, it's like, for lack of a better way to describe this, I was seriously freaking horny. I was horny, okay? And, you know, um, you can, use your Hitachi magic wand all you want, but it's kind of like I wanted the physical intimacy. I wanted to feel like somebody wanted me. I mean, you can say that it was physical intimacy and that it was this process of, releasing energy, which basically, having an orgasm is. But I wanted to be wanted again. I wanted to be desired. I wanted to feel desired. I wanted to feel the rush of not only meeting somebody new, but being physically intimate with somebody new, which can be very exciting. And that was like fueling me to like come alive again, uh, especially after motherhood. I had been in this marriage with just like a lot of problems. It wasn't just problems with my ex, we had financial problems, a lot of financial problems. With his business and with his business choices. And now I'm a parent. I've got 2 children. They're expensive. They are taking a lot of my energy. And I kind of lost who I was.
Mm.
I went into my marriage like this, like cute chick. And now I'm like a haggard mom. You know what I mean? And so I needed to reconnect with myself. And my method was through physical intimacy and going out on dates.
I love it. And so when did this all happen for you?
Well, I would say it was about 6 years ago now. Um, Maybe like 7 years ago, I started this dating process because I am in a new relationship. I've been in a relationship for 6 years, maybe over 6 years. That's why it's a little hard to remember the exact numbers, but it's been a while now, and I always knew I wanted to write about it because I'm a writer. so, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I love it. And so tell me, what are you bringing into this new relationship since going through the mega dating process that maybe was not in that first relationship?
You know, confidence. I just when I was younger, I was very, very shy. And maybe it's a stereotype, but I had, a challenging relationship with my dad. And so it made me insecure. I was especially insecure around men and around dating. And so just literally practice. I practiced with all these different men. And so it made me more confident than when I entered into my marriage. Had I been more confident then, I might not have married my ex-husband. He's not a bad guy, but there were already some red flags. Okay. There were already like we probably shouldn't get married, but I just wasn't confident enough. I was like, this guy likes me, he wants to marry me. I should just, go through with this.
Mm.
And so I was much more confident when I met my new boyfriend. I wasn't, he wasn't my boyfriend, but when we met, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm so shy. I'm so scared. I was like, hey, I've got all this practice. And like, also, if it doesn't work out with you, there's a bunch of other guys on my Tinder roll. I mean, a lot of people don't like, the kind of that kind of you can call it non-ethical non-monogamy that sometimes happens on these apps where everybody is still kind of dating everybody else. But for me it took away kind of the fear. I was like, I can just like present myself to this guy, we can see if it works. I'm not going to be afraid because there's like other fish in the sea.
I love it. So you really saw that you had other options. And so choosing that partner, what was it about him that made you want to settle down?
He walked in the door and I was like, "Oh my gosh." It was love at first sight. And I have written about this. What I advise my readers is that you really need to be liberal in who you're swiping right on, or whatever app you're on. You need to be liberal about who you're going out to date. Um, the caveat is that obviously you should have standards, and you don't have to date everyone. You have to have some level of attraction. But I'm prefacing it this way is because when I was on Tinder, and when I swiped right on my current boyfriend, he wasn't like the perfect guy. I was like trying to date all these hipster guys who I thought were cute. I would look at their picture and I'm like, oh, your cute little horn rimmed glasses and your funky haircut. And oh, you work in, some creative um job. And like, oh, I can imagine us, doing these hipster things that I kind of wanted to get back to doing. I kind of wanted to get back to having my life like that.
Mhm.
But I took a chance on my boyfriend. He was a little bit older. He's about maybe 8 years older than me. He came off as a little, I hate to say boring. I was like, "Oh, is this like suburban guy? He's so like straight-laced. We're never gonna understand each other. It's boring. I've been like dating all these, hipster dudes, whatever." And but I took a chance and we met in real life and it was like, whoa. Not only he was like taller than he looked in his photos, he was cuter. He had like this amazing personality, kind of like this spark came out of him that was perfect because he's like a grounded guy, successful, commitment oriented, all those things without being boring.
Nice.
But had I been like, "Oh, you look kind of boring," we never would have met, and I who knows? I'd be in a relationship with one of these guys who I had been dating, and they were not appropriate, you know?
Yeah, totally. That's what I found in mega dating too, was that when you look at it like a numbers game and you look at it like, let me have these experiences, you open your mind to people that you may have disqualified. And I always say, if I had met my partner on a dating app, I would have swiped left because I had in
Yeah,
my mind who I thought I wanted. But because I was doing this experiment, I needed to go on so many dates. I opened my mind and I realized, oh, I've been disqualifying people that are actually much more compatible than what I thought I wanted.
absolutely. It's a numbers game. I mean, I hate to say a lot of people expect, the app to kind of like serve up the perfect person. I mean, that was a thing. I don't even know. There was that website back in the day. I can't remember, but their whole thing was like, we use this algorithm to find you. It wasn't called intimacy. I don't remember what it was called. Um, but it was like they're gonna find who they think is the perfect person for you, but you kinda need to just do the work of, like, meeting a bunch of people and figure that out for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So I'm curious about how you chose your first partner and how many suitors you vetted before getting married.
Oh, you're talking about meaning my husband.
Yes.
I didn't vet that much. Again, I mean, we met and it was like sparks, but I was not well, no, that's not totally true. I was kind of liberally dating back then, but I was not getting physically intimate with people. It was very, very still I was, not doing that. So, I vetted maybe I don't I probably went out with like 10 other guys before him, maybe. Like some of these dates were just like we'd meet up for coffee or something. But my ex-husband had been on the dating apps for quite a while. He had gone through many, many, many women, and his thing was he was the one who told me it's a numbers game.
Interesting.
Yeah, because
Nice.
that's how he went about it, and that's how he then now he's remarried. Had he just given up, he wouldn't be remarried because he was meeting there's all these scammers on the sites now, on the apps, all these, people looking for money, and he met a few of them, and just rejection, 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 but it's a numbers game. You've gotta stay in the game if you wanna meet somebody.
So true. So is there anything that you would change if you could go back in time before you got married? Or is there anything that you would share with other people who maybe haven't gotten married yet to help them navigate that decision and really making the right choice for them on all levels, including physical intimacy?
Well, unfortunately, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know until you don't know, or, it's like looking back, for example, with my ex husband, I had some issues with his family in the beginning. They're very, very close-knit family. They were a different religion than me. They had a lot of they weren't they were like, "We accept you," but it's like, they really didn't accept me, and there were just a lot of differences. They had issues with my family, and it was like all this kind of drama that I was like, "All right, we'll work it out." And it's like, no. Like, if that stuff is already happening, you're not gonna work. I mean, maybe you will. Some people work things out. I mean, but it's like my advice is like, listen to the red flags. The red flags are there for a reason. They're telling you that the situation isn't right. And they're telling you that if this is the way it is now, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger once you're together, especially if you have children together. So it's like, if you're not okay with this now, you might want to reconsider, getting married. And I'm sorry, there was another part of your question, but you might have to ask it again.
Yeah, well, what I'm hearing you say is if there's some red flags that you're worried about, maybe thinking through those is a good idea, as opposed to thinking maybe they'll change. Would you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. And yet I understand, it's difficult. However, that said, one thing that I had never heard of that is very popular now is intentional dating.
Mm.
People are intentionally dating. I think when I was younger, it was just this like rush to get married. I got married later than a lot of people, and it was just this rush, like, oh my gosh, I'm single. And people still feel that. They're still feeling that. They're feeling the fear of being single. But the thing about intentional dating is that, you write down that this is what I want. And obviously I said, like with my current boyfriend, that you do need to meet people because you might think you want these things, but intentional dating is good, but it's problematic when people are younger. They haven't been married yet. They haven't had a family to kind of like understand just how complicated it is once you get married. You're financially intertangled. Um, you know, Many things can happen. Children are like a huge you know, burden on a relationship. I love my children, but they were hard on our relationship. And so, I mean, I can give all the advice in the world, and then it's like, you're not going to know until you kind of like, it's really hard to give people advice because if they've never been married before, they just don't know how difficult it is, you know.
Yeah. Well, you're giving me information because I'm at the baby making age, and we have our hesitations about how that would impact not only our business but our relationship. So I don't know if you have any insights on that.
Well, you know what? I just adore my children. I don't mean to be like bad mouthing kids. I love my kids. My kids they have made my life so much more just fulfilling, depthful, amazing. Like, I love my children. They have grounded me. They've made me a better person. They've made me grow up. Like, I'm a better, happier person because I have children. However, it's difficult on a relationship. And I think, this is something that I write about quite a bit, and I've written about it in my book. If you have children, you need to continue to find a way to be romantic and have intimacy with your partner, or the relationship is going to fall apart. Either you're going to start living, I just wrote, before I talked to you, I was just writing an article about this, like, kind of referencing my own experience. Like, if you do not keep that spark alive,
Mm.
if you do not continue to have sex, basically, you know, you're either going to be roommate. You'll become roommates or business partners, bringing up these two children or running your business. um Somebody's going to cheat. They're either going to be miserable in the relationship, cheating will happen, or it'll just end in divorce. So it's like, I think that people it's incredibly, incredibly important to keep that spark alive. And if you can't, then you really need to think about what you're going to do. Are you gonna, open the marriage? I mean, today, a lot of people are polyamorous. It's not so weird to, have an ethically non-monogamous relationship. So that's another thing I recommend to people. Like,
Mhm.
if the kids are getting in the way and you guys are growing apart, then maybe you want to date other people. So
Yeah, interesting. I have a lot of friends who are E&M, so very interesting.
yeah.
So to kind of wrap up, can you tell me what did mega dating teach you about yourself, the people you dated, love, and sex?
Okay. So that's going to be a couple different parts of the question. Um, well, gosh, it's complicated. It taught me that I am a lot more kind of sexual than I thought I was. I
Hmm.
was like, hey, I'm kind of like really sexual and I'm okay with, at that time, I am in a committed relationship. I'm not having casual sex, but I had no idea that I could kind of like have that experience and enjoy it. So that was like kind of cool. I'm like, wow, I can do this and this is really fun. I don't recommend it for everybody, but that was something that I learned about myself. Um, I did learn, and I recently wrote about this as well. I find it really sad that there we now live in this kind of like hookup culture, and yet it's almost like the genders, because I mean, I pretty much write. I am a heterosexual, like cis het woman, and I pretty much write from that perspective. So forgive me for framing this in a heterosexual way. Um, what was I going to say? It just feels like the genders are sometimes at odds, and I think that there needs to be just more goodwill. There just seems to be a lot of entitlement, maybe from both sides. I mean, from me, or from my perspective, I met a lot of men who just seemed really entitled. They're like, hey, I want to, you want to do phone sex? And it's like, you could at least be a little charming,
Yeah, right.
or hey, I'm not in the mood for, I don't want a relationship, but, do you want to hook up? And it was like, they did it in such a way that was so kind of disrespectful. It's like, if this is a fuck buddy, then or a friend, I mean, treat people like they're actually your friends. I think that people are so afraid of like, oh, she's going to get the wrong impression, so I've got to be kind of a jerk. And it's like, no, you can actually be, a halfway decent person. So that was kind of a depressing thing that I learned. Sorry, what was the other question? Like, I mean, what did I learn about sex? That I guess just what I said. you know, I had no idea that I could be asexual and really enjoy it. And it was a great time. I don't know if, hopefully everything's fine with my, my partner. We're really happy, but I don't know if I would go through the same journey if something happened. I don't know if I would replicate this particular journey, but it was a really, really interesting thing for that particular time. I talk about a lot of the things that I learned, in my book. I talked about how, ways that I empowered myself, like I brought a vibrator along, on my dates. It's like, hey, if it's gonna just be this, if it's just gonna be pleasure, then I'm gonna make sure I'm pleasured. I found a lot of selfishness, a lot of like male oriented, like, let's rush toward, his pleasure. And it's like, I'm gonna make sure that I am also, taken care of. If you can't do it, then I will do it myself. So,
That's
that is one
queen.
thing. Yeah,
Like
that's one thing. Yeah, empowering myself. And and I also learned that stop expecting, I don't expect, Obviously, if I was sleeping with somebody, it would be great if he respected me. But there's all this, talk of like high value woman or oh, a high value woman doesn't, do this. And it's like I think that women, and I would say men as well, or anybody who's dating, it's like the person who has to respect you is yourself. I respected myself. Some people look at my journey and they're like, "Oh, she lacks self-respect. How could a woman who respects herself do that?" Because some I had some one-night stands. It was sometimes the second night that I would go to sleep with somebody. Sometimes it was just like a hookup situation. I had a guy I met on Craigslist back in the day before Craigslist went down, where it was like very much like casual encounter, and a lot of people would say, "Oh, she doesn't respect herself." And it was like, "No, I respect myself. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I want to have this physical intimacy. I am not mixing it around with emotional intimacy. I understand that it is physical intimacy. I'm not going into this like, oh, we're going to go to bed tonight the first time we meet and this is going to become a long-term relationship. No, I respected myself. This is what I want. I want this now. I'm going to get this, but do not pretend that it is something else. If it becomes something else, great. So that is definitely something that I learned from this experience.
Yeah. And I think that our viewers are going to be so interested to know that women also sometimes just want physical intimacy. Sometimes we don't want a relationship. Sometimes we are a fan of the friends with benefits. And it's probably eye-opening to a lot of our viewers who are men who think that, oh, especially coming out of a divorce, I think it's really common. Hey, I want to have these experiences. I want to have physical intimacy, but I'm afraid that if I tell her the truth, like, hey, I'm really enjoying spending time with you, but I'm not looking for a long-term relationship. However, I would love to explore physical intimacy if you're on the same page. I think they're afraid to have that conversation and it gets them in a lot of trouble. So it's so great to talk with you and learn from a woman's perspective that we're all sexual beings, we're all sexual creatures, and we all need physical intimacy. And it doesn't always mean that it's going to end in a long-term relationship, but having that conversation beforehand is really important.
It's really important. And in fact, I actually found that men were very, very honest. They would always tell me.
Well, that's
And sometimes they would be surprised. They'd be like, "I just want to make sure you know that this I don't want a relationship." And I'm like, "Do you know like how many like you're not the only guy I've like been with this week,
yeah.
or don't get your panties in a bundle that like I want something serious." So, yeah, I mean, I found that men were actually quite honest about it. I would just say that people just need to be respectful. They need to be respectful of one another. If you're going to be intimate with somebody, then be respectful. Try to make it a nice, respectful time where you are doing something to create light energy instead of dark energy. Create light energy. And if somebody said that they're uncomfortable with it, then you need to respect that as well. It's
Yeah.
all about consent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Em, it was so great chatting with you. And if you guys want to read her book, we're going to link below so you can access that. If you want to get in contact with her, we'll put contact information and ways to get in touch with Em below. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and experiences with me. I love talking to people who have been through the mega dating journey. It's so transformational. And I love your perspective on it, specifically with having more physical intimacy and having those experiences, because we are all sexual beings and it's a super important part of the journey. So thank you so much, Em.
Thank you so much for letting me talk on today. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. I love it. If you guys like this video, make sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, and leave us a comment in the comments below, letting us know your thoughts, if you've done something similar, or if you're now inspired by M's story and the 100 date experiment that I did, and you're ready to get started on your own mega dating journey.